Saying you don't find any fat people attractive or would never date a fat person is not a preference. It's fatphobia.
Shut up, it is not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Hello YouTube, and welcome to the Body Honesty Project. My name is Lydia, and today we are talking about dating preferences. Now, this topic was on the forefront of my mind because, as many of you know, I recently got married, and when it came time to write my vows, I started to think, well, what are all the attributes and qualities about my soon-to-be husband that I adore? What were the things about him that made me want to marry him? And what were the preferences that led me there? And were some of the preferences because he wasn't fat? Did that actually weigh into the equation? Or is it because the things that I want in a person cannot possibly be met by someone who is fat? Well, there's a lot to discuss here. So why don't we watch this next clip, then come back and discuss. What I look for in a partner. Kindness, lovingness, and honesty. First and foremost, I want to be with a good person. Someone who is kind and rarely rude. Someone that can express and receive love. And someone that treats me with respect and honesty. They also have to show that they can demonstrate these qualities to other people, regardless of race, gender, creed, or body size. This attribute is a must. I don't date assholes. Drive and ambition. My partner doesn't need to have to be driven to achieve the same things as me, but they have to be driven to achieve something in their lives. If their only ambition is to sit on the couch and play video games all day, well, that's not going to be a match. Likewise, if they sponge off their parents and didn't make a life of their own, well, that's also not going to be a match. I value someone that is driven to work hard, and that doesn't mean that they have to be rich. They just want to have to work and succeed at something. I also appreciate people that want to better themselves beyond just their career. Someone that wants to improve themselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and academically. I want to be with someone that never wants to stop learning. Physical and sexual attractiveness. I can find an assortment of people attractive. All races, all heights, and many body types. I can usually find some attractive qualities in almost anyone. But there are certain physical attributes that really get my motor running. I prefer bald guys with a V shape. Not an extreme bodybuilder, but I have a preference for men that have broader shoulders than their waist. Now, not every man I've been interested in has this body type, but it is a preference. Common values. For me, it is important to have common values regarding religion, finances, politics, family, and health. We obviously don't need to agree on everything, but the things that come up every day, like how we save and spend our money, how we parent our kids, and what food we cook, are major to me. And I want to live a life with someone that has the same values as mine. Participation in shared activities. I like to be active, and I want a partner that is not only active on their own, but wants to do some of the same activities as me. I'm actually not all that interested in dating a super fit person if they won't go for a jog or take a dance class with me. We don't need to have all the same passions, but a willingness to try what your partner likes goes a long way with me. Shared life goals. I want to be with someone for a good time and a long time. I want a partner that I can envision living out my golden years with, traveling, having adventures, and watching our families grow. So a life partner to me is one that is not only my partner living my life now, but ideally stays with me for the rest of it. So as you can see, my list for attributes that I want in a partner runs far deeper than just physical attraction. There are other factors at play there. But before I get any deeper, why don't we hear from a popular fat activist and see what she has to say.
A lot of times when people are asked, why don't you date fat people, trans people, people of color, whatever, they will say, it's just a preference. I'm just not attracted to them. I can't make myself be attracted to someone I'm just not attracted to. The implication here being that preferences are innate, unchanging, and completely independent of any outside factors or societal norms, and therefore that they are inherently unproblematic. Like, it's not fat phobia, it's just who I am. I can't help it. But I think it's actually a lot more complicated than that. Our desires are not immune to social conditioning. Although, of course, you can't change your sexual orientation, when we see a certain type of body glorified, praised, and labeled as desirable in media, from the time that we can even process those messages, it's not going to not have an impact on us. And the fact is, at least anecdotally, lots of fat people report being desired by many people. But the piece that isn't there is the social acceptance. And again, that's also true for other marginalized identities. Maybe you are sexually attracted to fat people, but you can't see yourself in a romantic relationship with one because you've never seen that replicated in media. Or maybe you love a fat person, but you're too afraid of what your friends and family would say if you introduced them. Or you're too afraid of what it would say about you to be with someone who is lower on the desirability totem pole. In a dating culture where people constantly are ranking themselves out of 10 and are measuring guys' heights to determine if they're worthy of one date, I think it's fair to say that we are pretty concerned with our social standing and how we look to other people. Another great example of this is with men's heights. Increasingly, in the past few years, we're seeing more and more people who date men, usually women, specifying that they will not date someone shorter than arbitrary height number here, usually 6 feet. When I've talked to people about this and asked them really why, they always, without fail, say it makes them feel more feminine, more taken care of, more desirable when they have somebody who is bigger than them. And that affirms their gender, their feeling of being desirable, and how they look to other people. So it is not just cishet men. I'm not saying you can't have a preference, because I think preferences are very real. If you say, for example, my preference is for somebody who will give me this thing in the relationship that I need, such as financial stability, such as somebody ambitious, somebody kind or smart in a particular way, or interested in what you're interested in. But if your preference is just not fat people, not disabled people, not trans people, not people of color, I beg you, interrogate this and ask yourself why.
And my response to this is your fatness is more than just the physical desirability. It impacts all the factors around attraction. Let's revisit my list so I can explain. Now, I am very fortunate that my new husband checks all 6 of my checkboxes. He is kind, loving, and honest. He is driven and ambitious. He is physically attractive to me. We share common values. We do activities together, and we have shared life goals. So my new hubby gets a 6 out of 6 on the perfect match for me checklist. But let's say for a moment that my husband was the exact same person that he is right now, but 400 pounds. So the same person that he is, but at 400 pounds. How would my checklist be impacted by his weight? Let's go see. Well, the first item is kindness, lovingness, and honesty. And I don't think that any of those great attributes that he has would change regardless of his size. So for that one, I will give it a check. Next, we look at drive and ambition. Well, it's very likely that he would still have the drive in his career. But if he had let himself get to be 400 pounds, would he still have the same drive and ambition around his health and fitness? Well, that would be unlikely. So if he was 400 pounds, I don't think he would still have the same drive and same ambition that he exhibits now at his weight of 170 pounds. So for that reason, I can only give him half a check. Next, we look at physical attractiveness. Well, he would have the same face, so I would still be attracted to that. But I don't know if I could get past a 400-pound body. I just don't know if I could. But because I know that I am attracted to his face, I will still give him a half check. Next up is core values. And you might think that, well, this is an automatic easy check. I mean, we gave the full check for kindness, lovingness, and honesty, so why not give the full check for core values? Well, something is different now if he's 400 pounds, because part of the core values is health and nutrition. Are we still eating the same foods? Are we still cooking together? Because how did you get to be 400 pounds if we were still eating the same diet and still making the same meals together? Also, if he got to be 400 pounds and swallowed up all this fat acceptance bullshit, I don't know if I could deal with that because fat acceptance and me share very, very different values. So for that reason, I can only give this half a check. If all the other core values were the same, that's great. But if he got to be 400 pounds, there's no way that we could possibly still share the same core values of health and nutrition. And if he swallowed up fat acceptance rhetoric, well, then that would be a deal breaker altogether. Next, we move on to participation in shared activities. Well, hubby and I like to go for a run on Sundays. We call it Sunday Run Day, and it's a long run. It's a 10K run. Another activity we do together is take dance classes, which is, again, another physical activity. And in the summer, we like to go hiking on nature trails that are anywhere between 5 to 20 kilometers long. So I think that if he was 400 pounds, he wouldn't be doing any of these activities with me. And doing activities together is what bonds our relationship. So for this one, I'm going to have to give it a big X. And our last attribute is the shared life goals. And for me, this is incredibly important. Now, this was my second marriage. And as someone who is 44 with a new husband who's 51, life goals was incredibly important because I want to marry someone who's going to be around for the rest of my life. If my husband was 400 pounds, how much more life would he have left? I don't want to fall in love with someone and then have them die of a heart attack a few years later. Yes, I know that can happen to anyone, but I'm not going to set myself up in a relationship with someone with ill health knowing that they could pass very soon. At 44 and 51, we would be at the end of our lives if we were obese, rather than being middle-aged, which is what we are now. There are so many things I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to travel, I want to have adventures, but most importantly, I just want to maximize the amount of time that I have with my husband. And if we both keep ourselves fit, we can set ourselves up for many, many more decades together. It's Lydia from editing. I forgot to actually assign an X to this one. So yes, shared life goals gets a big X. So if we look at our list now, if my husband was 400 pounds, the best he could possibly score is 2.5 out of 6. Now, just for the sake of argument, let's say that I was able to condition myself to find him attractive no matter what. Attractive despite the fact he's 400 pounds. So we'll give this one a full check. A full check for physical and sexual attractiveness. Well, my total is still 3 out of 6. Is that good? Is 50% good? Are you looking for a partner that's going to meet 50% of your needs? I didn't think so. Now, in no way does this mean that all thin men can get 6 out of 6. Of course, there's a lot of lazy assholes out there that happen to be thin and fit that would get 1 out of 6 on this list purely because of their appearance. But that's also a fail. What I'm showing here is that there is no way for me to have my needs met dating someone who's obese. And it goes far beyond just if I find them physically attractive or not. Even if I could get over it and find them physically attractive, there are enough other things at play here that I would not be able to look at them as a life partner. And I'll tell you something. I dated someone for 2.5 years that was overweight. 2.5 years, and I found him attractive. But he was not a fat activist. He did not have his head in his ass. If we actually got to a point of getting married, I would insist that he work on his health so that he would be around for a lot longer. He was not in denial. He knew that being overweight was bad. And honestly, the extra weight didn't bother me as long as his mentality was that he wanted to work at it, either now or in the future. Fat acceptance rhetoric frequently tells us that you have to unpack that. Unpack the reasons why you don't want to date fat people. Well, I unpacked it, and my conclusion is it is not fatphobic to not want to date fat people. And that is because the person that checks all the boxes on my list cannot possibly be fat. They can get some of the check boxes for sure, but not all of them. And don't you want them all? Why settle? Why settle? Why not go for what you want? I want someone who is kind, loving, and honest, but also does activities with me. I want someone who shares the same core values, which also means believing in science and not fat acceptance rhetoric. I want someone who will cook in the kitchen with me and play sports with my kids. These are the values that I want in a person, and it's highly, highly, highly unlikely that I will find all those values in a fat person. And if I start dating fat people, well, obviously I can't anymore, but if I were single and were starting to date fat people, well then I think I would just be wasting everyone's time. Because even though I might be able to get over certain things, maybe I could even find myself attracted to a fat person, they're not going to meet the other requirements. And especially as a woman in her 40s who likes to date men in their 50s, how many 50-year-old fat people have any sort of longevity left in them? I am looking for someone to spend the next 40 years with me. And if you are morbidly obese, that's likely not going to be you. So, until next time, stay body positive, but also body honest.